Hello everyone. Today we're going to present our ratio analysis in relation to our performance during the business weekend. The presentation is done by myself, Vladimir, Junan, Jagath, and Ezel. To start with, I'm going to look at period 0. So for this particular period, current ratio and asset test ratio, we didn't calculate it. It wasn't relevant in our situation. The reason behind this was we didn't make enough money to pay things like our tax and loans and things like that. So for these particular ratios, we didn't calculate. What we looked at, however, was our profitability. How we performed. We had 46.8% during period 0, and for our net profit, it was a minus 7.21%. This was based to how much money we made at the end of our profit after tax. In terms of our long-term loans, our return on capital employed, we had a figure of 36% for period 0. Period 1, similar situation. Current asset ratio, we didn't calculate because it wasn't relevant to us. Profitability-wise, we had a gross profit of 46.8%. Our net profit for that period, again, was 7.21, and that was related to our profit at the end of that period. Again, we didn't make enough to actually pay our liabilities. Now, for our return on capital employed, the figure was at 56% for period 1. Looking at period 2, again, current ratio and asset test ratio is at 0. In terms of our profitability, our gross profit was at 43.8%. Our net profit, we went down to 0.78 minus. Our return on capital employed was 74%. Just going back to that previous slide, period 2, where is that again we made our net profit wasn't good enough, so as a result we had a negative balance there. Skipping to period 4, our profitability was at 44.3%. Our net profit was a lot better than the previous periods. It was at 1.35%, and our return on capital employed was at 58 for that period. For the final period, period 6, after profitability was at 21.85%. Our net profit, we made a minus figure. This again is due to the fact that our balance at that end of the period was minus 15,813, and that overall affected our percentage, which was 66.76%. Our return on capital employed, this is basically focusing on our assets. We ended up with 52% for that period. Okay, so this is just a representation of how we actually did during the game. Our profitability-wise, this is our gross profit. What I'm going to focus on is period 6. Reason for that is during that period, our expenses after our sales was high, and as a result, it affected our profitability during that period. Apart from that, compared to the other periods, we performed favorably well, but it was just period 6 that we had a problem with. Going to the next slide, which looks at our net profit, we are in the minus figure, and this was basically attributed to our expenses. We're spending things on product development, machinery, and things like that, and that basically left us in a negative balance. So period 6, we were at something like 66, minus 66%. On the next slide, our return on capital employed, we performed particularly well during period 2. As you can see, for the other periods, it was more or less the same performance for period 4 and period 6. but we performed particularly well during period 2. The next thing that we looked at for our analysis, what we could have done different in the business game. Possibly we could have controlled our expenses. As I explained, I believe we overspent in certain areas, and that affected us. So if we were to have another crack at it, we'll probably do spend less. Price setting, we're setting our prices too high, and as a result, our opportunity sales was going to other people in the game, or would I say our competition, and that left us with no stock. So what we would possibly do is maybe reduce our prices in comparison to our competitors, leaving us with enough stock for the next period. Looking at our next slide, as I mentioned, we're constantly out of stock and our sales were going to our competitors, so we'll probably manage our prices if we're given the opportunity again. We're constantly making a loss and not enough profits to pay our liabilities. As I explained, we couldn't calculate our current ratio and things like that. So we'll probably, again, it's all focusing on our expenses, control our expenses, and manage basically the profit and loss account in a better way. So in a nutshell, that's our presentation, and thank you very much.